sociologist. Did you see something in your life that opened your eyes to the dangers of this? Or was it sort of an accumulation of experience that led you in this direction?
Well, personally, for me and people in my family and people that I grew up with, many of us were on the outside looking in terms of our legal status. And
Yeah.
back in the early 2000s, when there was a little bit of a hope of the passage of a DREAM Act or potentially broader pathways to legalization, we thought that there might be hope to establish the fact that we've been in the US for a while, could prove that we've been living here, could prove that we've been contributing to society. So personally, I got an ID at the Mexican consulate. And in that process, I ran into a couple of people who were trying to sell business cards and pens to those of us filling out applications. And in that moment, I realized, wait a minute, for all of the talk and the hope that there might be something opening up in the future, there are people waiting to help. And that's important. But there are also people waiting who look like they're trying to help, but they're really just trying to make a buck and could be running away with your money and running away with your immigration documents. And that's the kind of thing that I saw up close. And I wanted to make sure that we talked about how this could be affecting other people.
Juan Pedrosa is an assistant professor of sociology at the University of California, Santa Cruz. Thank you very much.
You're welcome. And let's get the word out about these scams.
That was Marketplace's David Brancaccio there. Next week, we'll hear how communities are fighting back against these scammers. In New York, I'm Sabri Benishore with the Marketplace Morning Report. From APM, American Public Media.
Baptist Health is a proud supporter of First Coast Connect. Baptist Health, committed to building a healthier community for all of us. More info at 202-4YOU or baptistjacks.com. At ViStar Credit Union, we believe in helping members reach their financial goals and building stronger communities. It's why we offer our members better rates and give back to the places we call home. ViStar Credit Union. Visit vistarcu.org/join.
North Florida TPO, proud sponsor of WJCT's First Coast Connect, bringing to the community innovation in transportation planning, commuter services, clean fuels, and intelligent transportation systems. More at northfloridatpo.com.
This is WJCT News 89.9 in Jacksonville. Ahead in the next 5 minutes, live local news for the First Coast from the WJCT News team.
It's the biggest stories from this week. The Duval County School Board are unanimously opting to suspend the search for superintendent and give it another try at some point. Leonard Allen Cure shot and killed by a Camden County Sheriff's deputy following a violent traffic encounter. Blackwater Development LSC says they're the potential buyer for Regency Square Mall. And Attorney General Merrick Garland holds a news conference in Jacksonville outlining claims of redlining against Ameris Bank. Then a closer look at the Strength in Selfies event happening this Sunday on the north side. I'm Dan Scanlon. Just ahead on this hour, we'll take a look back at the week's top stories with our First Coast Connect Friday Media Roundtable. All that and more just ahead on our roundtable after the day's news.
It's a minute after 9 o'clock. This is WJCT News 89.9 Jacksonville. I'm Michelle Coram. A judge has dismissed a lawsuit filed by a Duval County Government Workers Union. Laborers International Union of North America Local 630 filed the challenge to Florida's new law that restricts unions, including preventing union dues from being deducted from workers' paychecks and requiring members to fill out forms with specific state wording. The union contended that the wording violates the First Amendment. Its case could be tweaked and filed again. A cosmic show is coming to Florida this weekend. Brendan Byrne reports a meteor shower is going to light up the early morning sky this weekend.
It's called the Orionid Meteor Shower, as the streaks will center around the constellation Orion. Earth will be passing through the tail of Halley's Comet. Bits of dust will hit our atmosphere at speeds of up to 41 miles per second and burn up. Lohman Planetarium Director Seth Mayo says these particles pose no risk to us here on the ground.
So they're just more pretty, even though they can look daunting at times. And if you just catch that little brief moment of that meteor streaking through the sky, it's totally worth it.
Mayo says the peak time to view a meteor is on Saturday and Sunday between midnight and dawn. I'm Brendan Byrne in Orlando.
CSX reported a 24% drop in the railroad's third quarter profit yesterday as it hauled 2% less freight. The Jacksonville based railroad says it earned $846 million, an amount just short of what Wall Street expected. Those results show mixed demand across various industries that CSX serves. It's 65 degrees now in Jacksonville, a nice morning. Sunshine this afternoon, low 80s, a light west wind. We do have a small chance of an isolated storm as a cold front moves past us.
This is WJCT News 89.9 in Jacksonville. Opinions expressed on the Friday Media Roundtable are those of our panelists and do not necessarily reflect the views of WJCT News.
And good morning. The weekend, thankfully, is upon us. I'm Dan Scanlon. You're listening to First Coast Connect. It is Friday. That means it's time for our week in review. Some of the items on our menu: Duval County School Board unanimously opting to suspend the search for the superintendent and come at it again. Got to reapply, guys, if you want it. A Camden County Sheriff's deputy shot and killed Leonard Allen Cure after a traffic stop turned violent on Monday. Blackwater Development LLC announces that they're the potential buyer for the Regency Square Mall. And the U.S. Attorney General Merrick Garland held a news conference in Jacksonville outlining claims of redlining against Ameris Bank. And then later we'll roll out the red carpet on the Strength in Selfies event happening Sunday on the North Side. It's a full show, so let's get it going. Joining me today on our roundtable, a regular contributor and owner of 8th and Whitner, is Charlie Griggs. He'll also be guest hosting on Tuesday and Wednesday, so I can sleep in 10 more minutes next week. So make sure you tune in, Charlie.
Good morning.
Karen Bruni Mathis, a former co-worker, a longtime friend, editor of the Jacksonville Daily Record. Good morning.
Great to be here.
New kid on the block here, Charlie McGee, journalist from the Tributary. And good morning. And we'll have David Barline coming in soon. So listen live. In fact, here he be. Listen live on the radio. Watch our video stream right now on Facebook or on the JCT YouTube channel. Call us at 549-2937. Tweet us or X us at FCC On Air. Email us at firstcoastconnect@wjct.org or message us on our First Coast Connect Facebook page. Also, make sure you check out our new Instagram page at FCC On Air. First, very interesting story. Tuesday, the Duval County School Board unanimously votes to suspend the superintendent search. The vacancy will be reposted at a later time. The candidates who applied for the position will have to send in those resumes again. And the interim, who I'm hearing from sources is well-liked among the rank and core, is going to stay for another 6 months. A lot of things to talk about here. Not a lot of candidates, certainly not as many as in previous times for our search, and we have searched for superintendents many times. Charlie, Karen, and I, David, we all know. So let's open it up, guys. First of all, the basics here. Who can talk about how many applications and what happened this week?
Well, I was going to this seemed like David would chime up, but I think the big controversy on here is that only so few candidates for a job of this magnitude in the past. They've had 70 to 80 candidates previously for this job, and what we're hearing is that the timing of it is causing some of this lack of interest, and because the school potential candidates are hard at work in their own districts or other areas, and bottom line is that a lot of the members of the board wasn't satisfied with the quality of the candidates that were there.
Well, 5 of them, I think, were immediately pushed to the side.
They meet the minimum requirements.
And who wants to start? I guess that it's logical. Who wants to start your new job in January of a school year? So, but the number gets me, and some of us have been around through a lot of superintendents. We've had a lot more applicants. What happened here?
Well, I think it is surprising because this is a big urban county. It seems like the kind of district somebody would really aspire to. You have voters approved a 0.5-cent sales tax for school construction, a 1 mil increase in property taxes for teacher salaries. So there seems to be community support. And so it's a little bit baffling that they only had 10 applicants for a job of this magnitude. It was really almost stunning. And although I do agree maybe it's hard to get somebody to move in the middle of the year, the other aspect you're looking at is there's 4 of the 7 seats are up for election on the school board next year. And so it's kind of weird. I mean, who would want to be hired by the current school board and then have the people who hired you then potentially not win re-election, and I'm not sure saying they are or aren't,
Right.
but there's that possibility. And then you have people who maybe ran against the very things that the current school board is espousing. So that's a factor as well in terms of how the superintendent search might be affected with that kind of political uncertainty.
And
They may
the-
want to wait till they have a new school
And the
board in
specter
place.
of your predecessor retiring, resigning, being waved goodbye. Maybe you don't want to face the current school board after.
Well, these aren't long term. This isn't a long term job.
No.
If you look back, I think when you and I got into Jacksonville, Dan, Herb Sang.
Yes.
Remember Herb Sang?
Oh,
There have
very
been
well.
8 superintendents in 50 years. And the average is about 5 years.
Mhm.
You know, they range, from 2 or more than that, but it's not a long term job.
And that's
No,
because of the market. Market size here. We're like the 20th largest district in the country. This is really seen as a stepping stone for those professionals that want to go higher in administrative levels. They want to manage a larger school district someday. I like to think back to when former Superintendent Vitti was here. He was like the number 2 guy in Miami. This was a perfect step for him to get to his current position in Detroit, where he manages the district where from the area where he's from now. So, but to have a number like that, and there are other things at play too. Probably, perhaps the politics here in Florida. We've seen a couple of districts, several superintendents be pressured to do things. It is an administrative position, and most of the superintendents try to handle it administratively and not politically, and they get caught up in a lot of the politics that are going on here in Florida.
Charlie, you obviously want to chime in on
Well,
this.
and that kind of ties into what I was going to say as well. I think post-COVID schooling system, anywhere in America has been transformed and in many ways, and the issue has also just become so politicized, like most things. And when you're the superintendent, I feel like you're in the position that you're going to be the one who's thrown overboard if some sort of chaos happens and somebody needs to go. And so it's a maybe more risky position now with all sorts of political tension over issues. And as David says, if the board gets flipped in some sort of significant way, all of a sudden you're in a precarious position. And just speaking about the economy and market in general, I mean, who would want to lose their job a couple of years from now if, God forbid, something terrible happens economically and in the conditions. And so, it seems like this specific time is a precarious one.
And what the state is doing or others are claiming it's doing when it comes to education. The governor's been here numerous times to discuss various things, and the topic usually focuses on, what about the empty bookshelves? What about the book bans? I don't know if I wanted to be, I'd want to come into this school district or this state even and face some of the limiting factors. We've got a bunch of calls that are coming here. So, hey, guys, don't forget to join the conversation at 549-2937. X us at FCC On Air. First Coast Connect at WJCT.org is our email. And we also have a nice Facebook page you can join in on. But, excuse me, let's go to Kimberly at the Beaches. Kimberly, what's your comment? Whoops. There we go. Hi, Kimberly. Sorry.
Hey, good morning. Thanks for taking a quick comment. I just have to say that the way we treated the previous superintendent, Dr. Diana Green, despite tremendous academic strides on her way out, has got to be factoring in as people consider whether or not they want to take that leadership position.
Thank you very much. Yeah, the first time and really only time that I met Dr. Green was she'd been here a week or two, and there was the deadly shooting at Rains High School. It was, and then I talked to her when she was here briefly to see the vice president, and then we had her here on First Coast Connect just a week or so ago. A very dignified person who has managed to find herself a nice position where I'm sure she feels useful.
But that's the part of the problem as well. I mean, many people believe that we lost a very good superintendent to retirement, no less, but many people believe that she was forced out. But we lost a very good superintendent without a real plan for transition. I mean, remember this, she announced her retirement in early May. I mean, so, leadership or the board should have probably known, had hints that she may be thinking about moving on whatever the circumstances were. So now we're looking at an entire year before we have firm leadership in place to be the administrator for the school district. So you have to think about also how we got here, and was the board, they have maybe they may share a little culpability in how this thing has been running, how it's been planned out, because they had to know that it wasn't going to be so easy to find someone to replace a well-qualified superintendent like Dr. Green.
Kathy, Matt says we're ignoring the elephant in the room. This is on Facebook. There are 10 other searches going on in the state of Florida, and it's coming from the governor's office. I don't know what that last part means, but again, as I said earlier, you may not want to, because of the governor and the DOE, want to work in this state.
Yeah, I think you have that's a great point. I mean, I think some other large urban school districts have had the same problem in terms of being able to get a real good, strong pool of applicants. And I think part of it is because the school board races have become politicized. It's a case where you now have people running who are endorsed or not endorsed by the governor. So that injects a certain partisan politics into what has not been usually a partisan position. So I think that's a definite factor. I think if you're weighing all those things, you go, if you're outside Florida, you're questioning, should I go to Florida? What's the political landscape going to be like? If you're in Florida, perhaps you're familiar with it, but then again, you're familiar with it. So maybe that makes you think twice about moving on to a different position, and you're much more attuned to the politics of the job.
And how many superintendents has the governor escorted out the door in the state of Florida? I think I can think of at least two.
I think 2 or 3.
So that's the other specter, is your own board may say, we don't like what you're doing. The governor may not like what you're doing, and then you're out of a job either way. So what are the options here, and what prospects do we have over the next 6 months, if any? Do we get 20, 30 more? Is there a better search going on? Does the interim, who is, I'm told, well-liked, as has happened once, I think, before, become the permanent? Thoughts?
Well, that was what I was actually going to ask all of you guys, so as someone who's relatively new to town and not an education reporter specifically. I'm wondering if you think that the presence of an interim right now and the lack of a full final permanent candidate on the expected timeline, is that affecting the function of the school system as far as any of you think? I mean, it's running now. The interim will be in place, I think, 6 months or more than expected. Is that change? Do we think that that's having a real impact on the actual function of the Duval County Schools?
Well, it certainly seems like the board has confidence in the interim, Dr. Dana Krisnar, and the community seems fine with that as well. We do have precedent for that, though. At the end, I believe it was at the end of previous Superintendent John Fryer, his term. I know Ed Pratt-Daniel he was one of the ones who moved through the system, who actually was in the classroom and and became superintendent down the road. So we do have precedent for someone to move up and move in, but I'm not sure if the board has put a stipulation in Dr. Krisnar's contract in her agreement that she can't apply, or I don't know. Would it be attractive for her to want to apply? So,
well, I've been here for 40 years, and I do remember that a retired administrator was brought in to be the interim, and was so loved that there was actually a campaign to keep her. But she, I think, wanted to return to retirement. But again, nice things were done. Now, you asked Charlie, the start of this year, we had a teacher shortage, we had bus driver shortages. As a grandparent who's helping the grandkid on the bus every so often, the bus issues are still there. My wife has had to take the kid to school because the interim driver, or go out to school and get him because there's no interim driver. There's still issues out there. The teachers are doing fine so far, but I think some of that support, and I even believe I read something on one of the TV stations that one of the bus companies is no longer with us due to a number of issues. So,
and as a superintendent, you're in charge of everything.
Yeah.
Even if you have no idea what's going on.
You're the captain sinks with the ship.
In a specific area of this huge, vast school system. And a lot of times you're held responsible for something that you really don't have responsibility for. Somebody else does. But when you look back at the interims, none of the interims have become superintendent. So this would be a precedent.
So, did any of these candidates have any misgivings about taking the position? Did they, was it stated publicly, or anybody hear any rumors?
No, I didn't hear anything. I mean, obviously they applied and were interested in it, and in Florida public records law, you better be interested in it because your name's going to be out there and it's going to be known by your current employer that you're looking at that position. So I don't think that was really the case. It does seem like, to Charlie's question, that they are comfortable with the interim and that she's doing a good job. I would be surprised if she were to become the permanent position for the precedent Karen's talking about. And the board mentioned even 2025 being the date when they have somebody new. And that, to me, I think that might make sense. I mean, again, you have school board elections coming up. You may very well have a case where the board says, look, this should be really a decision that's made by whoever's elected in the school board races, because they're the ones who are going to be working with this superintendent over the next 4 years, and they kind of push it down the road.
And is there a comfort level among the current board that we've got the capital improvement project going? We're building these new schools. So that's one big that's out of the way. At least we're getting the schools to handle one problem.
I mean, to David's point, that would even beg, make the question even, more emphasized. Why would you plan or let someone who's well qualified get away in a time of, the transition is going to be happening? You've got school board races coming up. You've got all these projects on the table. It's in the middle of a school year when superintendents traditionally don't want to start. It feels like it should have been more forethought to how this process is going to be laid out in order to get the type of superintendent that they want in order, to transition properly from someone who's, quote, retiring. If most of the people, a lot of people in the community feel like Dr. Green was, pushed out. And so she had the option to retire. So she retired, right? It's your problem, not my problem anymore, right? But that also put the board in the position where they had to respond. They had to be ready to respond to that, right? This, you asked for it, you got it. Now, how are you going to move forward from there in a way that is satisfactory to the community as well as the teachers, employees of the district?
Let me wrap up this topic with the final question. We spent $35,000, or should I say the taxpayers spent it, on an outside firm to help in the search, and we're back to ground zero. Did we lose that money? Did we waste that money?
I don't know if it was a waste of money. I mean, they did need to test the field and see what it was like. You would think that none of the people who applied this time are going to apply the next time because they've seen the writing on the wall. So you are back to ground zero. And Charles does have a good point. Maybe they should have thought twice about what the calendar should be and what the chronology should be in terms of how to get the maximum amount of interest in this position.
Charlie?
Yeah, no, I'm always someone who maybe questions consulting fees, but that doesn't mean consulting fees are bad in any sense, in every case, right? Like if you were not to hire a consulting firm, you would still have to pay, your city employees for whatever time they spend doing the same search. So perhaps it would be the same cost ultimately if it was done in-house. However, it's a question that's certainly worth asking if maybe the rate is a little higher to sort of outsource this search, and now clearly there's no result really other than let's do it over again. So we'll see.
And are we all going to be intrigued to see how many of the current crop refiles and reapplies?
Well, in private business, there a lot of times you will go out and recruit a CEO. You will identify somebody and go after that person. So that's an option, I suppose, in this situation.
And that search normally is led by a search firm, right?
Mm-hmm.
Someone, the company is, definitely paid, in most cases, and for the larger companies, more than $35,000. So I'm not as down or on the consulting fee. I mean, for the HR search, it pays off even when you get the right person.
Well, let's change tack to something that I'm going to turn to my old buddy Karen about. Back in the day, if you had to go Christmas shopping, if you wanted to spend a Saturday, you went to the Regency Square Mall. If you wanted to go out to eat, you went to Antiques. You went to one of the restaurants there. If you wanted some high-end shopping, you'd go to some of the stores there. If you just wanted to walk. And now we have almost nothing in a 30, 40,
56-year-old
mall. I'm talking about some of the sections. So about 2.5 weeks ago, Regency Realty, a partnership of Mason Asset Management and Namdar Realty Group LLC, confirmed they're selling the 56-year-old Regency Square Mall. and a prospective buyer has shown up this week, Blackwater Development LLC. So what do we know about Blackwater, Karen?
Well, we do know that Blackwater is fairly new, and we do know that the folks involved in Blackwater were involved in a previous effort to try to buy the mall several years ago, and that didn't take place. When they get to the due diligence of looking at Regency, that includes looking at, well, the remaining leases. There aren't too many leases left, but it also is the status, the condition of the mall. How much would it take to maintain or redevelop that mall? Who owns what in the parking lot? Now, a lot of times when you look at Regency, you think it's the entire mall. Well, it is not, because Impact Church bought the former Belk, so that's separately owned. Sears is separately owned by a former chairman of Sears. Dillard is separately owned, that clearance center. So what they are buying is the rest of the mall, and it's a little under 1 million square feet, so it's a lot. But it's not one big building. So you're looking at portions of the mall. And that isn't in good shape. We've all been in there, and if you haven't been in there lately, you might want to go in there and just see what sort of shape it's in. There are only, I believe, 5 tenants left in the eastern wing of the mall. So if you're going to buy that, you've got to find out what's happening within the bones of that structure. From what we understand is the redevelopment most likely, not necessarily completely, but most likely will be a mixed use, meaning you're going to tear it down. You're going to tear down the parts of the mall that you buy, because redeveloping it just isn't going to be feasible because of the amount of money. And then you have to determine what you're going to do with it. Now, if you remember Roosevelt Square, now called Artiga Park, that was an enclosed mall, and they did the same thing. They tore most of it down, they kept a few buildings up, and now it's completely redeveloped as an open-air mall.
And an open center, like the town center, is the current favored design, not the Avenues Mall, which is a nice place to go to. Met the manager last Saturday. But that's the old school. The new school is let's have it wide open. Let's make it a walking Park Avenue kind of place.
And you have more parking that way, or the illusion of more parking that way. And you have the illusion of more access. You just don't go into the malls anymore. Regency, even the part that's opened, which is from the old J.C. Penney to the old Belk, that's not even open anymore. That's cordoned off. You can only get into a few stores.
You know, the harbinger of this was about 10 years ago when a car museum tried to go into the old Montgomery wards, and they soon found to their chagrin that there were leaks in the roof, and they sued, and they won. And the issue was there's a neoprene rubber layer on the roof of the old mall, and as people were working, repairing the AC, they're putting holes in the rubber, which is then causing the leaks, which caused mold, and now obviously there's much more of that. So what happens now? Do we wait for those current tenants to move, the ones that can? Do we negotiate with the church, et cetera, et cetera? What could again? I'm going to Karen because she's the expert here. What phase are we at?
Well, we're at the phase where there are so few tenants left. I know that one that's in there named Jimmy Jazz. It's the last of the national tenants, and they likely will be leaving. I think Council Member Ken Amaro has told us that. And Jimmy Jazz, if you go inside, they'll tell you they'll probably leaving at the beginning of the year. So that just leaves Regency Health Food, which has been there forever, I think, from the very beginning. There's a jewelry store, Rogers Jewelers, and they still have a lease. And then there is, I think, one food court tenant left. And that's what's happening is they're going to be leaving, or they're going to wait for their lease to run out, or they will buy the lease out.
Hey, Mr. Potato Spread moved to a brick and mortar near me, so it's to my benefit now when I want a big stuffed potato. Talking about that, we've got Eugene on the north side. Eugene, you've got some comments on demolition question.
Yes, good morning to all. My 2 cents on it would be just basically tear down 3/4 of the mall and turn it into the fairground. It will be accessible by people that live in Jacksonville, St. John's, Clay County, from all directions. And we get rid of all these issues because the mall is really old and people just don't want to come to an old facility. That's just how it is. People like new stuff.
All right.
You guys can give me your comments off the air, please.
Thank you.
And I think
The one caveat with that is the city's already started construction at the Equestrian Center on the west side of the new fairgrounds.
I think that's sort of the point with the developer not really scheduled to close until about this time next year, right? People are looking for a vision, right? No one's going to really kind of get excited about this until they can kind of see what might happen with that particular space. Given its history, we all know it as a mall. It was the first major mall we had around here. When I was a kid, we felt like we were out of town. We were in another city when we got a chance to go to Regency. But if the developers put forth some type of renderings per se, and try to give some vision to what what may be coming in the near future, then I think the community may be getting a little more excited about it, because we've had other people who have been in line to purchase this facility in the past.
Well, Charlie
80
and David,
acres,
what do you?
70 acres. It's prime property.
You're the younger guys here. Do either of you go to malls anymore?
Haven't been to a mall in a long time, although I had a lot of fun experiences as a teen when they were still cool. It's kind of interesting to me. The area that I was in prior to Jacksonville is Barstow, California, and there's a big abandoned mall out there that is, I think it's similar age to Regency, and what they've done or what they're planning to do, which I don't know if it would be feasible here in Florida given differences in laws, but in California, cannabis is obviously legal. They're converting that entire hundreds of thousands of square feet mall into a cannabis growing supercenter, essentially. And the whole place is going to be, you'll have like 2 dispensaries on different parts, but then everything else, and we're talking the vast majority, is just going to be growing marijuana for legally.
Well, you need some food outlets there.
Yeah, it's a very controversial effort, and so
I don't know. As we were talking earlier this week with some folks, you've got to have it's got to be state licensed, federally restricted, an enclosed greenhouse facility.
Yeah,
with retail manufacturing could be a boon.
Right. And,
or a bust.
Even if even if the cannabis aspect isn't possible, there's all sorts of outside the box ideas. I wonder maybe, if it doesn't stay a mall, what do you?
They say there are some community visions that have been out there, and they're not just another mall or even something like Roosevelt Square. They're tear it down, build a big mixed-use development. Karen's right. That's prime property. It's right near a lot of intersecting roads. But, the retail aspect of it, maybe that whole area has kind of gotten a little bit.
It is. There's a lot of empty storefronts there.
Best Buy's not
nearby.
Closed there.
Yeah.
Maybe instead of doing another retail component, it's mixed use, truly mixed use. You do have a mayoral administration that's all about infill. Maybe there's a role the city has in trying to get that property where it's more of a destination, where it's got a place where the whole live, work, play, and do it from that standpoint,
Trees.
as opposed to just trying to recast it as another mall in a different variation.
We've heard a lot
Trees
about
and
healthcare.
lakes. Trees and
Healthcare.
lakes. It needs some greenery. That's a big mass of asphalt out there. It needs lakes.
Oh, it will definitely need some landscaping and some greenscape to make that work, because if you do mixed use typically means housing, residential, everything it takes to support that. So you would have to have, and with code, you would have to have some trees and lakes and parks and all of the things that support a mixed-use
And a
development.
shopping center right down Arlington Expressway finally became apartments. We have the old Bethel / hotel, Thunderbirds, which is a wide open space. We have the redevelopment of Town and Country as a gateway to Arlington. So there is some uptick in growth and development, but you all are right. This is the intersection of major roads.
Right.
This is where traffic dumps out or starts their day. It needs to be a place where you live, work, play, and dare I say, relax.
I've
And I'm
had
not
so
talking
many
about
people
grass.
tell me they should have given it to IKEA. I'm like, I don't think that's exactly what would have worked, but I get the point, which is it was prime property and it was accessible and it would have brought in a lot of people.
Well, let's move on to something that is not so much fun. On Thursday, the Camden County Sheriff's Office released the body cam video that showed the chase of Leonard Allen Cure from Broward County and the confrontation and then his ultimate shooting death at the hands of a Camden County sergeant. And we now have some very serious pushback from Mr. Cure's family. Mr. Cure's history is that he spent 16 years in Florida prison for a crime he did not commit. The Innocence Project of Florida found and helped get him free, and he had just been visiting his mother, going back to his place in Atlanta, when, according to that car camera video from the deputy, he went speeding by in his silver truck. So the altercation was tough to watch. There are issues that I see on both sides, but the physicality of that altercation cannot be denied. That was a rough one to watch. So let me just throw it open. Any thoughts about what happened on Monday in Camden County, Georgia on I-95? Any thoughts of where this goes from here?
I'm trying to sort of understand what happened in terms of just being a layperson, in terms of how these encounters can spiral out of control so quickly. And, clearly you had somebody who had been 16 years in prison for a crime he did not commit and did not want to go back to jail. And I don't know, one question I would have is whether that is standard, that if someone is speeding, the punishment for that is we're going to take you to jail. Because that really seems to be what precipitated his resistance. And then the officer then seemed to have some fear for his own physical safety. That's a tense situation when an officer is out there by himself or herself, and then you're not really sure what's going to happen next. Did use the taser, which is, I assume, is probably part of their protocol for how to handle the situations. And then there's the confrontation, there's the struggle, and then the shooting. With the officer, I think there's a lot of questions about what is the standard policy for these types of arrests in terms of, do you write them a ticket and go on your way, or is there some trigger that, well, you're going this much over the speed limit, you're going to jail? I've been stopped for speeding and have not been told I'm going to jail. So I don't know what it was in this particular case. It said you're going to jail because of this.
Well, the Atlantic Journal-Constitution did seek out records and found out that the sergeant had been fired by Kingsland Police because apparently some of his coworkers said that he was a little too aggressive, their words, not mine, in handling a woman in an earlier situation. So that is added to the list here. There have been previous issues in that area with police, both the local police departments as well as the sheriff's office. And unlike Jacksonville, the GBI, Georgia Bureau of Investigation, is handling this for the Camden County Sheriff's Office, as they do every officer-involved shooting in Georgia. So now we literally wait and see. But apparently, due to some concerns by the sheriff's office, they opted, along with the district attorney, to release the videos. And again, be aware they are very difficult to watch.
Yeah, what we're looking for here is the results of the investigation, and that's supposed to tell us everything and make us feel better about the situation. But like David mentioned, I can't imagine the traumatic experience this Mr. Cure was having, thinking that he was going to go back to jail, knowing that he had been wrongfully incarcerated for so long, and he's facing that possibility. None of us can speak for his his mental state at that point in time. And then you got the officer who's been trained to act a certain way, to handle situations a certain way, armed with the information that use of force laws, typically err on the side of the law enforcement officer. So, all of that coming together at the same time is a recipe for a disaster, and that's what happened on Monday. And I'm just hoping that when we get the investigation back, whatever conclusion they come to, is truthful and transparent in a way that the entire public can understand. But this is a tragedy that we see all too often, where situations are escalated for reasons that we believe that don't need to be escalated to that height. Now we're on the other side. We're not wearing a uniform or anything like that, and we're not driving the car. Don't know everything about it, but we can all some Monday morning quarterback about what should have could have happened. But it just needs to be more conversation about how these situations are handled, and especially in a situation where we're going to be very quick to make race an issue, right? Because that's what's going to happen, and we need to be comfortable with the outcome of what's going on here.
Well, his mother, during the news conference with Ben Crump, their family attorney now, said that she and her son, were deathly afraid of what would happen if indeed he had a meeting with police. And so one has to presume that indeed, Charles, there was some emotional reaction to having a loud sergeant yelling, "Get out of the car, put your hands on the back. Now you're going to jail."
Right.
Yeah, I mean, there's so much that we don't know, like Charles says, and it's like to a degree that I would don't want to speculate on issues like this, but I totally agree with the idea that it had to be traumatic for him to just have this interaction. I also I've been pulled over for speeding and never been asked to get out of the car or anything like that. One thing that I think is interesting I've seen reported is, he, after his release and his exoneration, was going back to the where he'd been held and working with, helping train like new corrections officers, and calling to sort of check in on people who he had interacted with on the other side when he was incarcerated, and that's a sign that there's at least a good human side to him, right? He's not some person who's like running around causing violence with police.
Yeah,
or
if you look
anything
at the
like that.
video, he at one point gets down on the ground and he basically tells Mr. Cure, "You're not going anywhere." And then he literally, there's this gut-wrenching cry from him when he realizes that Mr. Cure is dying. Like I said, sit down, have a cup of coffee. If you want to watch these videos, they are very tough. And I've been doing this for 40 years and seen many of these. This is a tough one to watch. I don't know what to say other than I can't wait to see when GBI has a result.
Right.
And hopefully, we don't know how long that's going to take.
No, they're pretty efficient. I mean, their
Right.
website, that they always have a lot of stuff. Their previous PIO was very quick at commenting, very easy to talk to. I expect there'll be some result, 6-8 months, and it will be on the GBI website. They'll have a news release, not unlike what the state attorney's office does here with the JSO transparency when they do their own on their site. So it's now a waiting game, and I have not heard from Mr. Crump or the family since the release. Apparently, the brother did talk to media about the video, but I've not heard much more than that. So it's now a waiting game. Any final thoughts before we go?
I mean, there are questions about, what impact tasing him had on him. That we don't know all of the, how did that influence his decision making during that process. So there's a lot to unpack here.
Let me go to one final caller, Stanley on the north side. Stanley, your comment?
Yes. Good morning, everybody.
Good morning.
Yes, that area is known for arresting African Americans. I know this for a fact. Also, number two, why do the police, when he addressing African Americans, did the first thing come out their mouth is, I'm gonna take you to jail? Yes, and number three, we've been having a problem in Jacksonville and up in Georgia, that part of Georgia, for a long period of time. And our research show you got a lot of people when it comes to the police department are Klansmen. Thank you.
All right. Thank you very much. All right. On that note, let's move to a very interesting news conference yesterday at the Jacksonville Boys and Girls Club. The United States Attorney General, Merrick Garland, comes here to say Ameris Bank engaged in redlining. If the courts approve of the settlement agreement, Ameris Bank will pay $9 million to expand credit opportunities to Black and Latino neighborhoods, basically saying that they were not doing that. They were not opening any banks in those neighborhoods. So, again, I open it up to the greater minds than mine. First of all, redlining. I need to know what that is better.
So redlining is a practice that became institutionalized for a few decades in America, starting in the 1930s, and it's basically the practice by banks or other lenders of home loans, things like mortgages, of excluding specific areas, neighborhoods or census tracts, whole areas of people from even the chance to apply for a loan or
So
apply for
literally
more.
drawing a line on a map and saying yes
Right.
and no.
That's where the term came from. Is the map would essentially have a red line around a certain region, and why this is a problem among many things is that it has always generally targeted black people or just minority communities in general. Although black people really specifically, the data shows, have been most affected by this. And it was outlawed by the Fair Housing Act in 1968. But obviously it hasn't been eradicated by any means. It still exists in the private sector. It's just not endorsed by the government anymore. But it basically now it persists in more, a lot of different ways. And that's what kind of this lawsuit shows, is that where a bank sends out its flyers, advertise things, where a bank locates its branches, where does it put up billboards, what applications obviously does it accept and not accept. And, all of that combines to show, allegedly, as the government alleges, and this has been settled, so still allegations that Ameris Bank in Jacksonville specifically has serviced, almost very much majority white neighborhoods and areas at the exclusion of black and Hispanic dominant primary areas.
Our own Will Brown, who covered this yesterday for Jacksonville Today and WJCT, in his story indicates that while Ameris opened 8 branches in the city, none were opened in this area. So that's an indication right there that they redlined, or they decided they didn't wish to have an operation where people could have been served, helped, and gotten loans and built homes, built businesses.
Right. This is, one of those things where you kind of wonder, how it originated, right? And the fact that Ameris Bank, once the accusations came out, and they would, accusations came out, and they said, "Hey, you know what, DOJ, you're right. Well, at least we don't want to get involved in this. So, here's what we think is fair to resolve this." Action speaks louder than words. $9 million in the grand scheme of things in terms of what the impact redlining might have on the community is, in my opinion, peanuts. So, if they really want to do some work, if they really want to, they stated, hey, we haven't done anything wrong, but we just want to move this thing out of here. I think that that they should do a better job of providing access to capital, or at least being more creative in how they find ways to make money.
So what does Ameris do now? And may I add a second question? What do other banks maybe see this and decide to do?
I was going to say that we talk a lot about food deserts, places where there are not grocery stores where you can get fresh fruit and produce and meats, but there are banking deserts, and they're the same places the food deserts are. And there are large areas of Northwest Jacksonville where there's not a branch bank. And then you go to Mandarin, and you throw a stone and you hit a bank and bank and bank. So I think it is a much bigger issue than just this particular case. And, and if it's a big aspect of quality of life. I think if you're looking for where you're going to move into a home and you drive around that neighborhood and there's no grocery store and there's no branch bank where you can go to a 24/7 teller, that tells you something about that neighborhood.
But there's a quickie loan place.
Right.
Or 2 or 3.
Several years ago, I did kind of a map to look at where these branch banks are located, and you can just almost overlap where the food deserts are with where the branch bank deserts are.
Right.
When you were talking about College Park a few stories ago, they're talking about they're trying to bring a bank in there too, because that was a food desert area and also a banking desert. So they're bringing a bank in there because there were 2 banks right across the street, and both have closed. So you're trying to bring a bank back into that area. And they're also, I believe, up in Gateway in Norwood.
Truist.
Truist.
They reopened over there.
Right. So you're trying to bring in.
I know of a former credit union that has turned into a nonprofit agency after the building was donated. So, but maybe credit unions are necessary. You want to do something. You want a safety deposit box. You want it down the street. You want to have a banker. You want that banker that you can get a relationship with, and you want it a quick drive away, not going downtown to an office tower, I guess.
Yeah, but and if, most people in the urban core bank by proximity. The bank is nearby. I want to put my money in there. I get my checks cash, so forth. But today's banking is different. People are looking for the banks are looking for deposits, and they're looking for opportunities to do deals, big loans, car loans, real loans, house mortgages.
And during the pandemic, banks were really closing a lot of their offices as well because people weren't coming inside anymore.
All right, it is time for our lightning round. And I want to ask everybody here, what do you got on your radar? What's happening?
How is Trevor Lawrence's knee? I think, that's just interesting for this week. We've just wondered, how is the Jaguars quarterback's knee going to be? It's a good sign that we're actually a competitive team, a contending team, and it's nice buzz. So that was a great, thrilling game last night.
It was.
Well, David took my theme of the Jaguars, but I got to say Christian Kirk on my fantasy football team has been dynamite for the last few weeks, and that touchdown at the end of the game last night really saved me. So, Christian, if you're listening, keep it up, man.
Well, I'm going to the Jaguars game this weekend. So, yeah, the Jaguars do play here. The Southern University Jaguars playing against Bethune-Cookman Wildcats.
Oh, cool.
At Everbank Field Saturday. So everybody should come out.
And to kind of stay on an economic development theme, I don't think people realize Amazon is now the city's top non-government employer. 16,000 jobs. Amazon is number one.
And my quickie, State Attorney Melissa Nelson has launched on High Alert a fentanyl awareness campaign that aims to increase education about that dangerous narcotic, and they're going to be releasing a bunch of videos. TV will be talking about it, or you can go to their X, Facebook, or Instagram page, even YouTube, and learn more about it. So that's it. I want to thank our panel for another exciting, interesting, and thought-provoking.
Jacksonville Center for Clinical Research presents Vax to the Future, combo viral vaccines with seasonal flu, presented by Dr. Michael Korn on October 27th. Lunch provided and RSVP required at 730-0166.
Wayne Hogan of the Terrell Hogan Personal Injury and Wrongful Death Law Firm. Serious injury cases are complex, and civil trial attorneys present the evidence juries need to see and hear. More at waynehogan.law.
President Biden is back from a trip to Tel Aviv, one where he offered his support to Israel as well as his counsel.
I caution this: while you feel that rage, don't be consumed by it.
Here, the murder of a 6-year-old Palestinian-American boy has left many communities fearful about growing anti-Islamic sentiment. Another busy week, and we catch up on all of it on the Friday News Roundup, next time on 1A.
Today, starting at 10 on WJCT News 89.9.
And welcome back. Well, Sunday, October 22nd is an event you don't want to miss. And bring your cell phone. Giles Jewels, in partnership with the Selfie Showroom, is hosting Strength in Selfies, dedicated to celebrating the fearlessness and bravery of local breast cancer survivors in our community. And we've certainly been talking about that this month. So joining us now is Carissa Glanton, curator of the Selfie Showroom. And she just showed me the book. You can see it on camera. And I'll tell you, if you're going to do a selfie and you got backgrounds like this, it's the way to go. But what is the Selfie Showroom, first of all, and why did you, with the T-shirt, saying it, decide to get in that business?
Oh, well, the Selfie Showroom is a studio that is built for selfies, but it's not limited to just selfies. It's just basically a full production studio. But it accommodates for all level of photography. So you don't have to be a professional. You can come there with your phone. If you're starting photography, it's a great place to start working with the camera in studio. So that's where I decided to start it because I actually enjoyed taking selfies myself. And
I noticed the second you sat down, yes.
So I visited a lot of selfie museums myself, and but they were all kind of one themed. So the museum ice cream, all one theme. It wasn't until I started getting into TikTok that I realized there was selfie museums with several different themes, and that was totally me because I actually had 13 years doing photography and in studio, and that kind of struck it kind of piqued my interest because of the fact that I love to make different themes for all my clients.
Well, I'm looking at this, and this is your studio, right?
Yes.
This is killer. I mean, you've got the pretty girls' room, you've got a kids' ball, you've got this wonderful little tea party set up, you've got this elegant bathroom with a giraffe holding a chandelier, you've got an airplane, luxury airplane, you've got a throne room, and all beautifully lit, all set for production. And I do video production myself, so I appreciate what I'm seeing, the level of light and the fact that you have all these angles. And so where is this? How do I show up and do something there, or anybody?
Well, the Selfie Showroom is located off of Lim Turner. Our address is 9433 Lim Turner Road. It's actually attached to the Roses Plaza.
Okay. Now, what is a selfie showroom? What do? You walk in with your camera, someone else's camera, phone, what? What do you do? How do you do it?
So when you come in, you can order tickets online. So it's basically a one-ticket entry to use all the scenes in there. So it's $28. You can order some tickets per person. And when you go in there, you can use your cell phone. We'll connect a Bluetooth remote to your cell phone. And you can use our phone holders to use your phone to take pictures. It makes it way easier than timer.
No sticks, no long arms. And do you have a green screen? Can you put up a fantasy background, something different that you don't have?
Well, we currently don't have a fantasy background or a green screen, but we can. We do have our Pro Zone open now, which is for professional photographers. So if they needed to use a solid color background, then they can manipulate the photo as needed.
Now, this is a cool place for any event, but you're doing a Strength in Selfies event. When, where, how much, and then what is it?
The Strength in Selfies is for breast cancer warriors and survivors. So it will be free for the survivors, and we're doing a brunch. The brunch will be served by Leola of Blue Diner, which is also located on the north side off Lim Turner. And then we'll have mocktails or, mimosas served by Shar of Cocktails of Sweetness.
Got to be sitting in the throne when you have the mimosa. That's the place to go.
Yes. So we'll be doing that Sunday, October 22nd from 12 to 2. And I just wanted to also give them a gift bag. They're also going to do the full experience, which is a 360 spin booth and a Polaroid photo.
And your desire for this event is to do what? To make the survivors, to give them something fun to do and get the word out that this is Breast Cancer Awareness Month and that people need to know about this and do the self-checks, etc.?
Yes, so I do want the awareness out, but this is also goes deeper. People just don't realize that selfies are a way of self-expression. So it does give you a creative outlet, and it's just fun in general. Sometimes when you're put in that space and you're like, okay, well, I got an hour, and so let me go ahead and have fun. You'll have more fun than you thought you would.
And some survivors don't have a good self-image of themselves, and you're giving them a place to project a better image, right?
Yes, I wanted them to be able to have fun and enjoy themselves, and then have some memories that they could share of that time that they enjoyed, during the Breast Cancer Awareness Month.
And you're certainly not a low energy person, so you're going to be obviously making them smile and guiding them and educating them. So again, the event, Selfie Showroom, where, when, how, so we let people know.
The Selfie Showroom is off of Lim Turner, 9433 Lim Turner Road. And this event will be held it'll be free for all breast cancer awareness, for breast cancer warriors and survivors to come out and enjoy selfies, doing selfies for free, doing our full experience between that time.
All right. Well, I thank you very much. Again, I thank all of our guests today. If you have any questions or comments about First Coast Connect, send an email to firstcoastconnect@wjct.org. I'm Dan Scanlon. You're listening to First Coast Connect on WJCT News 89.9 Jacksonville. That is our program. Again, thanks to all the guests and callers. Executive producer standing behind the glass right now, David Luckin. Our producer, Stacy Bennett. Kathy Waterman, fielding all those phone calls. Associate producer. Our director, the Spielberg of the operation, Brady Corum. And we'll be back Monday, but if you missed anything, you can listen to the broadcast at 8 o'clock tonight or find today's show at WJCT.org and on your favorite podcast platforms.
And the North Florida TPO.
North Florida TPO, proud sponsor of WJCT's